Adam Hancock, who's following the story from Singapore for us. So, Adam, a flurry of diplomatic activity expected in Jakarta today. What's likely to be on the agenda?
Well, I think most pressingly, most of the countries attending that are not within ASEAN are trying to gain support from the countries in this region because they are well aware how strategically important countries in this part of the world now are because of that ongoing US-China power struggle and how a lot of it is being played out in this region. So we've got the US Vice President Kamala Harris. She's been there for a couple of days, as has the Chinese Premier Li Jiang, and both have been really meeting with ASEAN leaders and trying to put forward their points of view. Today, the Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi has made a visit to the summit in Jakarta. He's there for an Indian-ASEAN talks, as well as the East Asia Summit. And it's been really seen as a diplomatic gesture of goodwill by the Indian Prime Minister, because, of course, he's about to host the G20 summit in Delhi. And he's decided to make a flying visit to Indonesia before that, really to try and advertise India as an alternative for ASEAN nations to China, both diplomatically and in terms of trade as well. And we expect lots of trade talks to be taking place today. We've also heard from the UN Secretary General, Antonio Guterres. He talked about the risks that the world's economic and financial systems are facing. And he also touched upon the conflict in Myanmar as well, saying it was a worsening humanitarian situation. So a really varied agenda at this summit. Expect the war of Ukraine maybe to pop up later today as well, because the Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov is in attendance. He's there representing Vladimir Putin. And it will certainly be quite interesting if there's any direct conversations between him and the US Vice President Kamala Harris or any other of Kiev's allies.
And has the summit made any breakthroughs on some of the major regional issues?
Well, I'd say the short answer to that is not really. You know, we haven't seen many strong breakthroughs on issues like the ongoing violence in Myanmar or the tensions in the South China Sea. And critics of ASEAN as an alliance will point to this as more evidence that this organization really struggles to make any impact. You know, some people claim that it's quite dysfunctional, quite ineffective, and not really able to push through and make a difference. Take, for example, the situation in Myanmar. ASEAN put together a 5-point peace plan with the military rulers in Myanmar back in 2021. And since then, really, none of that plan has been properly implemented, and it doesn't really feel like we're any closer to peace in Myanmar. Now, they are trying to make a difference. They've decided to strip Myanmar of their opportunity to chair ASEAN in 2026, and military leaders in Myanmar are banned from attending ASEAN summits. But a lot of it is just continuously releasing statements without any actual action taking place. And we understand that within ASEAN, some of the members are starting to grow frustrated about this approach and think that more needs to be done. Also, the South China Sea, there's ongoing talks between ASEAN leaders and Beijing about coming up with a code of conduct, really, about how to govern the South China Sea, because, of course, there's lots of territorial claims from both China and some ASEAN nations. But again, we're not seeing any progress on that. There's talk of trying to speed it up, but it really does need to be sped up, because we've had incidents recently with vessels, the Philippines vessel and a Chinese vessel, and use of a water cannon. So, this is a real world problem that does need to be solved. But at the moment, they're seemingly no closer to coming up with that code of conduct.
Adam, thank you. Adam Hancock, live for us there in Singapore.